Could be a different sort of political magazine. It's about politics. It's the first of its kind. It's arguably a lot of it's about Washington, so we were searching for a name, and George, after George Washington, seemed appropriate.
You talk about in some of the essays you write in the beginning that you were interested in the nexus between politics and popular culture. What do you mean by that?
Well, we'd felt, and I think especially after the '92 election, that if you looked at a lot of the other media, aside from magazines, television, radio, that they were covering politics in a fundamentally different way, a much more accessible way. And in turn, viewers were learning about political figures in a fundamentally different way. It was more personality-driven. A new generation of people were coming into government. And so we thought there was an opportunity to do something the same way in a magazine. And basically, the politics is not distinct from popular culture, is not distinct from popular life, but actually is a part of it and is inextricably weaved within it. So it was important for a magazine to sort of accept that premise and deal with politics in a way that people regard as they might regard music or arts or sports.
Other than the fact that your circulation is 4 times larger than the New Republic or the National Review or the Weekly Standard, how do you differ from those more, quote, serious magazines?
Well, our aim had always been to be something different, which hadn't really been done before, which was to be a really broad consumer, broad-based magazine about politics. And we figured in order to do that, we needed to do a few things differently. One was we sensed that there was this audience of people who had not been reached yet. You know, in the same way that Wired magazine said there's a group of people who are interested in information culture, we thought there was a group of people who were interested in political culture. But in order to reach them, we needed to do a few things differently. We needed to be visually driven, as you can see George is. We needed to leaven a lot of the serious discussions important for a magazine to politics with more familiar names, people from the entertainment community, from sports, etc. And we needed to really focus on the people who drive the political process, because people who read and who read a magazine use them as sort of a keyhole to look at issues.
Do you think people, your readers, are too jaded or cynical about politics?
No, in fact, I think quite the opposite. I think they're interested. I think they're fundamentally optimistic. I think they feel very much an outsider and perhaps less comfortable with the magazines that you had mentioned before, because they feel that perhaps it's not oriented to them. And this is a way for them to really begin to understand something in a more fundamental and substantive way than they might get just from the news.
You go out of your way to say that you are nonpartisan, post-partisan.
Yeah.
You've just hired Tony Blinkley, the former chief spokesman for Newt Gingrich.
Sort of ironic, right?
You're still a Kennedy Democrat.
Right.
Why is the magazine nonpartisan?
Well, you know, in the beginning of the most recent election, there were several polls that came out that said 40 to 50% of Americans now identify themselves not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, but an independent. And I think increasingly, you know, as you see the decline of the party hierarchy and the importance of that, people want to feel that they are consumers with regard to politics, that they want the information and they want to make a decision based on what's right for them and not because of what someone tells them. And we've tried to really incorporate that perspective within the magazine to be kind of a consumer-oriented magazine about politics for people who are independently minded.
You interview Dan Quayle in this issue, and you talk very candidly with him about his Murphy Brown speech, about family values. What did he say?
Well, you know, his was the first salvo in this, lack of a better word, the dialogue between
why is the magazine nonpartisan?
Washington and the entertainment community about content. I think one of the things that mystified him and continues to was that he had one sentence in a 40-minute speech about Murphy Brown, and yet he said it got more attention than anything else he did as vice president. But I think that he feels that, you know, other people have taken his cue on both sides of the aisle. Certainly Dole did, and President Clinton has also. And so I think that he took a lot of heat in the beginning, but I think he feels somewhat vindicated that other people have taken up that standard.
You also asked him about Lloyd Benson's retort at the debate, "You're no Jack Kennedy." Yeah. What did he say to you about that?
Well, he said that he anticipated that Benson would try to say that, but Quayle really meant that in terms of experience and in terms of age, that those weren't factors that should be held against him, because they weren't held against my father, or they were, but he overcame them. In Washington and